Chapter 32. And they proceeded to trade blows, cries Pitt. Hurrah, adds Pliny. They rolled over and smashed the furniture. Mason got a black eye, and Dixon a bloody nose. And the others came running, their coins a jingle, some pass-bank bully hastily recording their wages upon narrow scraps of elephant. Lomax, chides Euphy. Boys, their parents call. Bedtime. Us? To bed? Queries Pitt. Who should be listening to a tale of geminity, explains Pliny, if not twins? Your surveyors were twins, were they not, uncle? Up to a point, my barking fire dogs. The Reverend, having thought it over, as it seemed to me that Mason and Dixon had been converging to all but a semblance, till something occurred between them in 67 or 68 that divided their destinies irremediably. Separated them, cry the twins. Perhaps this would be a good moment for us to abandon the narrative, says Pitt. Best to remember them just this way, agrees Pliny, before an inch of that line was ever drawn. Bedtime for bookends, calls their sister. The express packet goose down is whistling all non-children ashore, back to their storm-wrecked jetty, back to their grey, unpromising port town, there to bide far into the night, exiles from the land their children journey to and through so effortlessly. What about Indians? Asks Pitt, adhering to the door jamb. You did mention Indians, mutters Pliny around his brother's shoulder. Do the surveyors get to fight anyone, at least? Anyone killed? A frigate battle isn't enough for you parlour apes, the Reverend smiting himself upon the cheeks in dismay. Pontiac's conspiracy? Pitt hopefully. Broken, alas, whilst the surveyors were in Delaware, running the infamous tangent line with its consort of correctional segments. The Paxton boys? No likelier. Whilst they rode whooping and shooting upon Philadelphia, the surveyors were out in the forks of Brandywine, well south of the invasion route, with a new observatory up and the stars nimbly hopping the wires for them, as they gazed from some place here upon Earth's surface, yet in their thoughts how unmappable. May we have Indians tomorrow, uncle? Of course, Pitt. Pliny, sir. The younger. Off they go. Tenebrae, now the youngest of the company, brings in fresh candles and fills the tea kettle and puts it upon the hearth. Depew and Thelma observe her covertly as she moves, seemingly unaware of the effect her flexed nape, her naked ear swiftly reconcealed by a shaken tress, her hands in the firelight, are having upon them. If Mason's elaborate tales are a way for him to be true to the sorrows of his own history, the Reverend Cherrycoke presently resumes, a way of keeping them safe and never betraying them. In particular, those belonging to Rebecca. Then Dixon's tales, the Emersoniana, the ghosts of Raby, seem to rise from simple practical matiness. Who, if not Mason, at any given moment needs cheering? A cheerful party chief means a cheerful party. Directly before the Falmouth packet sailed, he begins. Oh, shit. Dixon. Directly before the Falmouth packet sailed, he begins, one night as they wait for a star, William Emerson presented me with a small, mysterious package. "'Twill not be an easy journey," quoth he. "There'll be days when the compasses run quackwaversely wild, boxing themselves and you into perplexity. Or happen the stars be absented for fortnights at a time, with your own pulse, as ever, a suite of changing tempi. Then will a reliable ticker come in handy. This one, as you see, is too tarnished and wounded for any British or French thief to consider worth an effort. Yet Americans, being less sophisticated, am obliged, Jeremiah, to enjoin ye, be vigilant, to the point of folly, if folly it takes, in your care of this watch. For within it lies a secret mechanism that will revolutionize the world of horology. Calculates when she's overcharging, and by how much, something like that. What it does do, Plutonian, Emerson told him patiently, is never stop. Why, aye, and upon the hour it sings Yankee Doodle. You'll see, 'tis all in the design of the remontoire. The first thing an Emerson pupil learns is that there is no perpetual motion, said Dixon, which I am, in fact, all these years later still upset about, sir, perhaps in some strange way holding thee responsible. What are we to do? 'Tis a law of the universe. Prandium gratis non est. Nonetheless, if we accept the theorem hand and key are to mainspring as clock train is to remontoire, then the solution ever depends upon removing time rates from questions of storing power, with the proper deployment of spring constants and magnetical gating. Power may be borrowed as needed against repayment dates deferrable indefinitely. Sir, why would thee entrust to me anything so valuable in so unruly a country, if it got into the wrong pocket? If anyone tries to disassemble it to see how it works, upon the loosening of a certain unavoidable screw, the entire contraption will fly apart into 1,000,000 pieces, and the secret is preserved. But the watch? Oh, another is easily built. The trick's uncommonly simple, once you've the hang of it. Then why aren't these everywhere? If we had arrived in the age of Newton, transcended, perpetual motion commonplace, why is it yet a secret? Interest, chuckled Emerson cryptically. In fact, compound interest. Now what seems odd to Dixon is that 10 years ago in Mechanics, or the Doctrine of Motion, Emerson expressed himself clearly and pessimistically as to any hopes for building a watch that might ever keep time at sea, whose 10,000 irregular motions would defeat the regularity of any timepiece, whether spring or pendulum driven. Why ever then this dubious loan of a timekeeper even less hopeful? Their history in Durham together has been one of many such messages, not necessarily clear or even verbal, which Dixon keeps failing to understand. He knows, to the eye blink, how implausible Emerson is as the source of the watch, meaning he is an intermediary. For whom? Who in the world possesses the advanced arts and enjoys the liberal funding required for the building of such an instrument? Who indeed? On the Falmouth packet, coming over, alone with the enigma at last, he inspects it at length, but is unable to find any provision for winding it. Yet one must be hidden someplace. Damn, he mutters into the wind down from Blackhead. 'Tis Popish plots again, thick as mushrooms round the grave of merriment. Here they are, these jezzies, being expelled from one kingdom after another. Whence any spare time to devote to expensive toys like this? He is a Newtonian. He wants all loans of energy paid back and every equation in balance. Perpetual motion is a direct affront. If this watch be a message, why, it does not seem a kind one. At last, red-eyed and by now as anxiously seeking as seeking to avoid any proof, he delivers the watch to Captain Falconer for safekeeping inside the ship's strongbox till the end of the voyage, finding the timepiece upon arrival in Philadelphia ticking away briskly as ever, and the counter-rhythms of the remontoire falling precisely as the steps of a Spanish dancer. He hopes it might be confiding to him that its effect of perfect fidelity, like that of a clever woman, is an elaborate and careful illusion, and no more, to be believed in at his peril. Like to listen, Dixon offers one day when he and Mason are out upon the tangent line. It's all right, I believe you, Mason's eyebrows bouncing up and down politely. Mason, it's true. I never have to wind it. Do you ever see me winding it? Mason shrugs. You might be winding it while I'm asleep, or when screened, as we so often are one from the other by trees. You might be engaging one of these rustics, keeping well out of my sight, to wind it regularly. Do I have to go on? Friend, would I quiz with you upon something so serious? All our assumptions about the conservation of energy, the Principia, our very faith as modern men, suddenly in question like that. Had I a twopence for every approach made to Bradley upon the topic of perpetual motion, I should be somewhere else than this, recumbent, I imagine, upon some sand beach of the Friendly Isles, strumming my ukulele, and attended by local maidens, whom I may even sometimes allow to strum it for me. You are fair suspicious. Listen to it, at least. Watch to his ear, frown growing playful. Mason, after a bit, begins to sing. Señorita, it can't be sweeter. What shall we do? What a fiesta, not much siesta. Do you think so too? Look ye, the moon is ascending. You no comprehending. Please, it's just as well, for I'm in your spell. What's that, can't you tell? Señorita. Yes, amusing little rhythm device. Not loud enough for ensemble work, of course. Forgive me, friend. I've again presumed our minds running before the same wind. My deep error. Mason, in reply, begins to wag his head as at some unfortunate event in the street, whilst Dixon grows further annoyed. Do thou fancy I've an easy time of it, with the evidence before me, gathering each day? I don't wind the blasted watch. Even so, I can't believe in it. I know the old man's idea of merriment. I am thrown into a vortex of doubts. The watch ticks complexly on. To Dixon, sworn not to let it out of his sight, a burden whose weight increases with each non-torsionary day. At last, at some station ankle deep in a classically awful lower counties bog, he is able to face the possibility he's been cursed. Emerson, long adept at curses. Having found himself, he once confessed to Dixon, using the gift as he grows older in the service less of blunt and hot-headed revenge than of elaborate and mirthful sport, directed at any he imagines have wronged him. Has Dixon finally made his list? Did he one day cross some line? Perhaps during a conversation he's forgotten, but Emerson has ever since been brooding upon, perhaps in detail. Everyone's nightmare in these times, an unremembered slight, avenged with no warning. What did I do? Confronting his teacher at last in a dream, to merit such harsh reprisal. Had I been that wicked to thee, I'd surely remember. You violated your contract. Emerson producing a sheaf of legal paper, each page embossed with some intricate seal, which if not read properly will bring consequences Dixon cannot voice, but whose terror he knows. Where would you like me to begin, Plutonian? 'Tis now Dixon recalls the advice given Mason at the Cape by the Negrito Tocco, ever vigorously to engage an enemy who appears in a dream. He knows that to be drawn into Emerson's proposed exercise is to fight at a fatal disadvantage upon his enemy's ground. His only course is to destroy the document at once, by fire preferably, though the nearest hearth is in the next room, too far to seize the papers and run with them. Emerson is reading his thoughts. Lo, a fire sign who cannot make fire. The contempt is overwhelming. Dixon feels defeat rise up around him. It seems the watch wishes to speak, but it only struggles with the paralyzed voice of the troubled dreamer. Nonetheless, Dixon's salvation lies in understanding the message, whereupon he wakes feeling cross. Though sworn to guarantee the watch's safety, he soon finds his only thoughts are of ways to rid himself of it. In its daylight ticking, the voice so clogged and cryptic in his dream has begun to grow clearer. Drinking will not send it away. When you accept me into your life, whispering, as it assumes a shape that slowly grows indisputably vegetable, as it lies within its opened travelling case of counterfeit chagrin, glimmering, yes, a sinister vegetable he cannot name, nor perhaps even great Linnaeus, its surface meanwhile passing through a number of pleasing colours, as its implied commands are delivered percussively, fatally. You will accept me into your stomach. Eh! A tremble and fizz far from ruddy. He shows up at the tent of the camp naturalist, Professor Vohm, who advises that, as the fate of vegetables is to be eaten, as success and reputation in the vegetable realm must hence be measured by how many are eaten, it behooves each kind of vegetable to look as appetizing as possible, doesn't it? Or risk dying where it grew, not to mention having then to lie there, listening to the obloquy and complaint of its neighbours. But dear me, as to objects of artifice, watches, and so forth. Tell me, with all honesty, sir, regarding this watch, does it not seek to project an appearance, not only appetizing, but also, I can't say it. Vegetables don't tick, the professor gently reminds Dixon. Why, those that be only vegetables don't. We speak now of a higher form of life, a vegetable with a pulse beat. Beyond me. Try asking R.C. He enjoys puzzles. Beyond R.C., a local land surveyor employed upon the tangent enigma as well, though he's not about to say so. From the instant he sees the watch, the mens rea is upon him. He covets it. He dreams of it, never calling it the watch, but the chronometer. In his mind conflating it with the marvellous timepiece of Mr. Harrison. Thus flexibly has the story reached America of the rivalry between the Harrisons and Masculine to secure the longitude, and as much prize money as may be had from longitude's board. If a man had a chronometer such as this, R.C. asks Dixon, mightn't it be worth something to those gentlemen? A tight-fisted bunch, according to Mason. They must open their grip upon the prying bar. Must be why they call it prize money, says R.C. I bet you find it tempting, though, don't you? I'm not sure whose this is, Dixon replies carefully. I'm keeping it for someone. A gratuitous bailment, of course. R.C. trying his best not to look mean. As a transit fellow, Dixon recognises R.C.'s complaint, but too well. The many years passed among combatants unremitting, unable by one's honour to take sides, however much over the brim emotions might run, assaulted soon or late by all parties, falling at last into a moral stuperousness as to the claims of law. In fact, perilously close oneself to being mistaken for a lawyer. A bonny gone on. Did you see that, boys? Good enough to eat. axe-manly wit at the watcher's expense causes R.C. to glower and approach, often to fractions of an inch away. What are you in my fizz for now, R.C.? You don't want to be offending the wrong folks, R.C. advises. No one knows what this means, but his point, that he is too insane for everyone else's good, is made. One midnight, there is an uproar. Dogs bark. Axemen request silence. The surveyors are out of their tents, up the track somewhere taking zenith observations. There is a crowd in front of Dixon's tent. R.C. is caught in the light of Nate McLean's tallow dip, just as the last bit of gold chain, sucked between his lips like a Chinese noodle, disappears. R.C., maybe you're getting too mean to think straight anymore. I thought I heard someone coming. That was us. Should you have set it down someplace instead of swallowing it? There wasn't time. Naive more than you know what to do with, quips Moses Barnes to the glee of his companions. Don't you know what it is you swallowed, R.C.? Arch McLean slowly reciprocating his head in wonder. That's 60 years of longitude down there. All the work it's come and gone upon that one problem since Sir Cloudsley Shovel lost his fleet and his life upon the cruel rocks of Scilly. What were my choices? R.C. nearly breathless. The thing was either bewitched by country women in the middle of the night, fire, monthly blood, names of power, or perfected as might any watch be, over years, small bit by bit, to its present mechanical state, by men, in workshops and in the daytime. That was the sexual choice the moment presented, between those two thoughts of magic. I had less than one of the creature's ticks to decide, so I took it, and I gobbled it right down. His pink fists swing truculently, and he has begun to pout. Any of you have a problem with this? As the arm of discipline here, I certainly do, declares Mr. Barnes, the overseer of the axemen. For in an expedition into the country, as upon a ship at sea, nothing destroys morale like theft, which, legally speaking, is what this is. Yet anyone may put an ear to his stomach. The watch is sensibly there, nor's he making a secret of it. We might more accurately say an act of sequestration, its owner being denied the use of, yet absent a conversion to personal use. Oh, Philadelphia, thunders Mr. Barnes, have thy barristers poisoned discourse e'en unto the rude who dwell in this desert. Whatever shall we do? The utterance being Mr. Barnes's cryptic way of requesting it, stone silence falls over the company. Has anyone considered where we are? All know what he means. We're just at the tangent point. Strange lights appear at night. Figures not quite human emerge from and disappear into it, and in the daytime farm animals who stray too close vanish and do not re-emerge. And why should anyone find it strange that one man has swallowed the watch of another? Some style this place the Delaware Triangle, but surveyors know it as the Wedge. To be born and reared in the Wedge is to occupy a singular location in an emerging moral geometry. Indeed, the oddness of demarcation here, the inscriptions made upon the body of the earth, primitive as designs pricked by an Iroquois, with a thorn and a supply of soot upon his human body, a compulsion withal, supported by the most advanced scientific instruments of their day, present to lawyers enough litigation upon matters of property within the wedge to becoach and six a small pack of them, one generation upon another, yea, unto the year 1900 and beyond. By early youth, R.C. had become the kind of mean, ornery cuss his neighbours associated with years of maturity. Here comes old R.C., and don't he look soured today? 'Twas his profession did it to him. As a young surveyor, from the rude shocks attending his first boundary dispute, he understood that he must exercise his art among the most litigious people on earth. Pennsylvanians of all faiths, but most intensely the Presbyterians, hauling each other before justices of the peace, sheriffs, church courts, village quidnuncs, anyone who'd listen, even pretend to, at an unbelievable clip, seeking recompense for ill treatment grand and petty. If he wished to pursue this line of work, he would have to recognize the country-wide jostle of polygons as a form of madness, by which, if he kept to a fiduciary edge of right procedure, he might profit, whilst retaining his sanity. He infuriated the more bookish surveyors with his approach, which included avoiding paperwork, walking the terrain, and making non-instrumental guesses. Looks about 8:30 to me. Here. Eyes shut, arms straight out to his sides, then swept together till the fingertips touched, eyes open. That's it. How so? By eye. He twinkled sourly. Most of these out here, round the wedge, ye can do by eye, pronouncing it by eye. By the time he turned his hand to the problem of the tangent line, it seemed but an accustomed madness in a different form, the geometric whimsicality of kings this time, and kings to be. In the months, and then the years, after he swallows the watch, as the days of ceaseless pulsation pass one by one, R.C. learns that a small volume within him is, and shall be, immortal. His wife moves to another bed, and soon into another room altogether, after persuading him first to build it onto the house. Snoring's one thing, R.C. I can always do something about that, brandishing her elbow. But that ticking kept me awake too at first, Phoebe, but now it rocks me to sleep. Best wishes, R.C. Oh, suit yourself. R.C. can act as sentimental as the next young husband, but his public roles require him to be distant and disagreeable. Besides, since he swallowed the watch, she's been noticeably less merry with him, as if cautious in its presence. Do you imagine it cares what we're doing out here, in the world outside? Say, Phoebe, do be a peach and come. But, R.C., it might be... What? His voice beginning to pitch higher. Listening? Taking it all down somehow. You're the girl I married. Damn if you're not. He knows she never quite sees what this means, and being none too sure himself, he never offers to explain it. "'Tis a national treasure," declares Mr. Shippen, "and whoever may first remove it from its present location shall enter most briskly upon the stage of world business, there, will he, nil he, to play his part. All at the price of your own life, R.C., of course. Chirurgical extraction and all, but that's business, as they say in Philadelphia." "I'll chuck it up. Why don't I do that?" putting his finger down his throat. "Oh, may we watch?" cry the children. "Never say watch to your father," advises Mrs. R.C. "Ah!" The finger comes out bleeding. "Something bit me." Like trying to protect its territory, his eldest son assures him. "How could it bite me? 'Tis in my stomach. 'Tis a watch." "Alter its shape, maybe. Who knows what's happening to it in there? Where all is adrip, disgusting and mushy, with chewed up food, and acid, and bile, and it smells ever of vomit. Ew! Enjoy yourselves, children, even at the expense of your poor suffering old father, if you're that desperate for merriment. No matter, go, mock. Too soon will equal inconvenience befall ye, every one. 'Tis life. We'll not go swallowing watches, thank ye. Not if you want to sneak up on an Indian some day, you won't. Hadn't planned on it, Pa. Figures he'll cash in on the longitude. Instead, he eats the chronometer. Some zany dreamer I married. Of course, Dixon has to tell Emerson. For weeks after the express has curveted away, he mopes about, as gloomy as anyone's ever seen him. I was supposed to look after it. You wished release from your promise, Mason reminds him. Think of R.C. as force majeure. The letter in reply proves to be from Mrs. Emerson. When he received your news, Mr. Emerson was quite transformed, and, whooping with high amusement, attempted, whilst in his workroom, to dance a sort of jig, by error stepping upon a wheeled apparatus that was there, the result being that he has taken to his bed, where, inches from my quill, he nevertheless wishes me to say, Felicitations, fool, for it hath worked to perfection. I trust that in a subsequent letter my husband will explain what this means. There is a postscript in Emerson's self-schooled hand, exclamatory, ending upon a long, quill-crunching stop. Time is the space that may not be seen. Upon which the Reverend cannot refrain from commenting, he means that out of mercy we are blind to time, for we could not bear to contemplate what lies at its heart. End of chapter.